All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Generations Legacy Deluxe Class Skids. That's right, I found the Legacy Deluxe Class figures at retail. Very exciting. Last video, we kind of took a look at a figure that was really only Legacy by a technicality, but this one is a full-blown new Legacy figure. And yeah, it's pretty exciting. I picked up Skids and Drag Strip and Kickback. I decided to skip RC. I just don't think it looks very good. But either way, this is a really nice looking figure. Here he is in his little hatchback mode, and I adore this vehicle mode. I think it looks very cute. It's got a lot of really nice detail. I love the front section here with the headlights picked out. It even has a moon roof. It's got some stuff like the back doesn't have any painted detail or anything like that, which, take it or leave it. It doesn't generally bother me, but it's always nice when there is some painted detail back there. And then other things like, oh, the back window is like just sculpted opaque plastic, but the rest of the windows are, clear blue plastic. Not the biggest deal, especially because like the whole car is dark blue and the windows are kind of dark blue. It doesn't stick out a whole lot, but it is notable. He does roll pretty well, which is nice. Like I've said before, it's not something you can necessarily take for granted on a lot of modern figures, so it's nice when you can actually, roll him across the table and have it smoothly glide like that. What's kind of interesting is if you look at the front wheels here, what's actually rolling is not the whole wheel. It's kind of just like half the wheel. They've done that trick before, like with the last one that I can think of that did that was... Thrilling 30 Hoist and Trailbreaker had that same kind of thing going on. It bothers me a little bit conceptually, but it's not something like cheating for me because like at least the wheel is sculpted to be in the right place. It's not like it's coming from a totally different part of the car or anything like that. So it still works fine, but worth mentioning. He comes with some weapons here. He comes with a pretty standard gun here, a little double-barreled gun here, and then the whole gimmick of the Legacy line is they all come with these, well, some of them, I'll mention that later, come with these like energon weapons, which all have a bunch of ports and pegs on them, so you can like combine them in different ways. Yeah, I don't love it as a weapon in and of itself, but as a line-wide gimmick goes, it's fairly unobtrusive. It just means extra accessories that you may or may not enjoy. That's fine. I'm okay with that. In terms of storage, Legacy is unfortunately continuing the more typical weapon storage system where your storage is just you plug it on top of the car in some variety of ways, which I don't love. I think it looks bad. The most compact way to do it with all three weapons is taking this peg on the double-barreled one here and plugging it into the bottom of the single-barreled one and just compressing it up like that, and then taking the energon weapon and plugging it in like that, and like that doesn't look good. And it also just kind of ruins the whole idea of robots in disguise if you have this thing just hanging out on the top of a hatchback. Doesn't really work. What's kind of a bummer is there is some space down here that like could have been used for storage for at least one of the weapons. Like the connections on these are actually pretty tight too. It takes a little bit of doing to unpeg them from each other. But this one theoretically could have fit in here if it was shaped slightly differently. It might be possible. I haven't tried that hard, but I haven't really figured out a way to do it yet. It just seems like there is enough space down here that you could have had like a folding weapon that would actually store away perfectly, but it's just not a design priority for them, I guess, which kind of sucks because it's not impossible to do, but I guess they're just content with pegging stuff onto the top of cars. Irritating, but it's nothing new, I'm content just taking these and kind of putting them in a box, which is what I usually do, and not having weapons with this figure. But it's nice to have the weapons either way. I'm just kind of bummed to see that, the continuation of that, irritating feature or lack thereof in terms of weapon storage. But yeah, in terms of comparisons, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, and then additional comparisons. Here he is with Optimus Prime from Earthrise and the Netflix Bumblebee, because I do want to talk about scale here a little bit. there's one of two ways you could kind of look at this. The original Skids was based on the Honda City Turbo, which is a compact car. And looking up the dimensions of that car compared to a Volkswagen Beetle, it really should be about the same size as Bumblebee. But as you can see, he is much bigger. If you're accepting that this isn't a Honda City Turbo, but is more like a minivan or something that kind of just looks like that car, then I think it works okay. You know, like I think it fits fairly well as a slightly bigger kind of car. You know, the scale with these guys has always been a little bit muddy anyway, because like, you know, really Sideswipe is much larger than he ought to be compared to Bumblebee and Optimus Prime. These two are okay with each other, but most of the other modern Deluxes are a little bit, you know, too big in comparison to them, or they're too small in comparison to the rest, however you want to look at it. But yeah, you know, so if you're treating it like a minivan, I think it works okay. The one problem with that also, though, is that like he does only have one door on the side, which kind of does imply that it's a compact car. And like really you can see compared to, you know, Bumblebee's implied door here that it's way too big. But you know, it's not the end of the world. It's just something that's worth mentioning. I think it works relatively well if you're willing to, you know, kind of fudge the scale of some of these cars a little bit. But either way, I do really like the vehicle mode. I think it's really cute. I like that it rolls well. And I don't know, Skids has always just had a very charming vehicle mode to me. But yeah, the only other thing before transformation that's worth mentioning is I had to do a bit of a fix on this guy because right out of the box, and I've seen reports of this on other people's figures too, so it might be a running thing. The hood here, or the roof rather, just would not like really peg in. It kind of sat up like that, not flush. I realized what the issue is, and I'll show this off later, kind of midway through the transformation, is there are these two little tabs on the back of like these sections here underneath the roof that the clear plastic roof piece is supposed to tab into. And they do each individually fit in those slots, but they're a little bit too wide apart, so you can only really plug in one at a time. So to fix that, and again I'll show the tabs in a bit, but I just shaved down the side on each side of them, and it still feels a little bit scary sometimes, but I am able to get it to like actually sit flush, which is nice. So if you're having that issue, it is fixable. It's annoying again that you have to do that, but you know, if you want your figure to be a little bit better, it is possible to get it with a totally flush roof here. But yeah, for a transformation, first thing you want to do is just untab the doors from the side here, untab this roof if it's tabbed in, and then take the entire back section here and rotate it down on what will be the knee joints, and then take these black panels here and just fold them up onto the shins. The wheels here, which you don't actually have to rotate under the feet, but you can rotate them under. He stands fine either way, and in packaging, these were actually out in robot mode, so really whatever, but you are supposed to do that. And then you take the arms here, which are folded underneath. Let me just adjust the camera here a bit so we can see what's going on. And fold them up like this and then out to the side. And then you want to rotate it so this blue part is facing towards the front of the car like that, and then rotate the rest of the arm kind of back down. So you can also just like, you know, hold the arm and kind of rotate those in tandem if you want, except I rotated it the wrong way. But either way, that's how it's supposed to be. And then you want to take this section here with the roof and make sure that the little, like, I don't know, intersection of the hole here clears this red piece. And then you want to take this whole section, and there's a joint right here that you want to bring it down, lock it in place, and then rotate it back down on the hips, so kind of double joint it there. Then you can untab the legs from each other, and then real quick, these are the tabs that I was talking about that I had to shave down the side of a little bit. I just shaved down a little bit on this side. You can see the little knife marks there. Wasn't too hard, didn't take very long. Maybe I could have shaved them down a little bit more, but it seems to work okay. They seem to fit in the slots okay. Like I said, width-wise, it's just they're probably, you know, they're okay, you know, lengthwise too. They're just a little bit too far apart from each other, which messes with this since it's a single piece. So easy fix, wasn't too hard to do, but that's where those tabs are. And then last but not least, all you want to do is take the front of the car here and rotate it down onto the chest and click it in place. Now this back panel, you can kind of just do whatever with. It doesn't really peg in or anything. It does have a hinge in there. hinge it up just a little bit so I can sit it down like this so that the doors have a little bit more room to operate, because otherwise it kind of sits flat up against the doors and kind of bumps into them a little bit. So I usually just rotate it out a little bit just so the doors can angle back a little bit more. But yeah, there you have Skids in his robot mode, and he looks really good, I think. He does have one sort of not one sort of design aesthetic I'm not crazy about, in that for transformation, the back of his head becomes like part of the hood of the car. So he does have this kind of like big awkward panel sticking out on the back of his head. And it doesn't look super great, but that's something I can forgive. I don't, that doesn't bother me too much. But again, worth mentioning, in terms of articulation, the head is on a ball joint, so you get some good movement there. His shoulders here are on swivels right here. It's kind of a really thin joint, which worries me a little bit, but seems relatively stiff enough. They can rotate out to the side sort of on the wheel. What's sort of annoying is the joint that they use for transformation also has a tendency to go, and it's a little bit looser than the actual shoulder joint. So, it can be a little bit annoying when posing his shoulders, but ultimately it is nice that he has the two separate kind of like shrug shoulder joint and then also just like the T-pose shoulder joint. It can also, rotate 360. I probably already said that. He's got a bicep swivel here, about 90-degree elbow bend. He does have a wrist joint, which is nice. I thought he did anyway. Yeah, there's a wrist joint there. It was just a little stiff. Yes, he does have a wrist swivel, which is nice. He's got a waist cut. His hips can go forward, back when they bump into the panel there, out to the side, only about that far. He's got a thigh swivel, about 90 degrees of bend at the knee there. It's kind of weird how his legs are sort of done, because he takes the the part of the roof of the car with the knee joint. It works just fine. It was just kind of surprising to see this is all sort of like one piece, but it works well enough. And then his feet don't have any forward or backward tilt, but they can tilt out to the side, which is nice, with or without the wheel. So, however you want to do that. So pretty decent articulation. And yeah, he's a pretty nice figure. I enjoy him a lot. The transformation feels like pretty smooth and intuitive, which seems to be so far a running theme with the legacy figures that I've checked out so far. In terms of his weapons, obviously you can have him hold them in a variety of different ways. He's got ports on his arm here too, so you could plug it into his wrist, because that's kind of where the double barrel ones were on the original Skids. He can hold his big Energon axe weapon, and it's okay as an Energon axe. I don't know if it really suits Skids, but it's kind of a nice thing to have regardless. In terms of storage in robot mode, if you peg them all back together, he does still have that same port on his back, so you can get it all to sit there. It does hang off his back in a weird kind of way. But it does all physically fit there. So cool, I guess. In terms of comparisons, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipe, Netflix Bumblebee, and Earthrise Optimus Prime. So you can see that scale works a lot better in robot mode, which is obviously why he was scaled this way, because if he was more the size of Bumblebee in vehicle mode, he'd also be more the size of Bumblebee in robot mode, which would be less accurate. So I don't know if you care about vehicle mode accuracy in terms of scale or robot mode. Ideally, I'd like to have both, but if you're contextualizing him as a slightly different vehicle than he was originally, I think it works fairly well. I would rather him be this height, frankly. So, I think it works out fairly well. But yeah, he's a really nice figure. Like I said, all the joints feel pretty good. The articulation is pretty decent. I adore the vehicle mode. Scale, semi issues aside. And it was annoying that I had to shave down those tabs a little bit, but it was a very easy fix, and it does seem to have solved the problem. So yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with this figure. Yeah, not really much else to say about him. Just a really good start to Legacy. And, spoiler alert, I guess, for the next two reviews, but I really like the other two Wave 1 Deluxes that I've picked up so far, too. So it seems to be a pretty good start for the Legacy line so far. But yeah, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Without further ado, here we have Transformers Generations Legacy Deluxe Class Skids.